Welcome to a DeFi Dojo AMA. Today we are joined by Mike, the CEO of EtherFi and also the founder of Top Hat. Hey, Mike. Mike, how do you say your last name?
Silagadze.
Silagadze. And was it close?
Yeah.
I was close. I'll take it. You know what? Is that Italian?
No, it's Georgian.
Wasn't even close.
I've never actually been to
You
Georgia.
know, I have some friends who live in Atlanta, so I feel like that's the same.
That's exactly what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Tbilisi, is that the capital of Georgia?
It is. Man,
hey, there
good.
we go. All right, cool. So today we're actually going to talk about LRT Squared, which is a new. I don't know if the word is product, but it is a new thing. It's both a protocol as well as a token, as well as what's the governance token going to be called?
LRT2 Gov.
Okay, first question. How do you make the superscript 2 in everything that you do?
Every platform has its own different method of doing that, so it kind of depends. I think in Twitter you have to find the superscript.
I do a lot of copy and pasting. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Okay, so in your own words, what is LRT Squared?
Yeah, so actually LRT Squared is a completely separate protocol. So it's actually it's being supported by EtherFi, but I mean it is a completely separate product team, totally separate protocol. The reason that it exists is to solve the problem of how to claim restaking rewards. The problem that we're going to have, not this isn't the problem right this second, but the problem that we're going to have with restaking rewards is that there's going to be 50 of these tokens, 50 different AVS or restaking network reward tokens. And so as a normal user, let's say you're staking, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 ETH, and you're earning these rewards, you're going to have, 15 eigens and, half an Omni token and 0.2 Lagrange and et cetera, et cetera. And the result is going to be that the cost to claim all of these rewards is going to be prohibitive. It's going to take you, 5 years to earn enough of each token that it's even worth the gas to actually claim it and swap it into ETH. And so there has to be a solution to this. It can't be a naive claim all the miscellaneous coins. And there are a couple of solutions available. So one option is to auto compound all of them, meaning just as soon as the LRT, let's say EtherFi gets it, dump all the tokens, convert them to ETH, and then just auto compound it into more ETH. Another solution might be to ingest the tokens. So in other words, your LRT, in our case ETH, actually starts getting partially backed by all these random tokens. I mean, there's other solutions. Neither of those is good because if you are in fact auto compounding, none of the AVS and none of the networks are going to want to give you security delegation because they're going to say, well, you're just going to dump our token. This is bad for us. So we're going to choose something else that doesn't auto dump our token. So you're just going to have a hard time getting delegation.
And if you ingest, then your peg would go up and down depending on the value of the AVS
right.
tokens.
Now suddenly, instead of fresh, locally raised organic ETH, you now have ETH plus a bunch of random coins, so it becomes super volatile.
It's an index rather than a...
defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, there's other solutions. None of them are good. The only really plausible solution is to take all of these reward tokens and package them up into a single reward token. Mm-hmm. And that's what LRT Squared is. It's basically, as soon as you get some Omni, you put it into a big pool and mint some LRT Squared. You get some Eigen, put it in a pool, you mint LRT Squared. You get some ETHFi, same thing. Just everything goes into a giant cauldron, and you keep minting more shares of the LRT Squared proportional to the value that you're minting. So that's basically the protocol. It's not super complicated. Now, why is this protocol interesting and why does it require its own governance? Well, there's a lot of risk associated with it to make sure, people don't get rugged of their rewards. In particular, you have to be very careful with which tokens you whitelist, right? Because you don't want to just whitelist any random tokens that can be used to mint LRT Squared. So there needs to be some kind of governance process around making that decision and around risk parameters. So you need some sort of decision making around what's the rate limit on each token. Like you don't want to just suddenly the entire pool is, some rando coin. You want rate limits, you want percent allocation, you want protections in place, and those parameters are important. And you have to be very careful with which protocols get whitelisted to be able to mint LRT². Because if it can't just be anybody, because if anybody can do it, then all of a sudden they can just manipulate the price of one token and then, and then basically arbitrage or even rug the whole thing. So you have to be very careful with minting. Redemptions, though, are allowed by anybody. Redemptions are pretty low risk. And the way redemptions work is if you own, let's say, 1% of the supply of LRT², for example, you can just burn it and then get the underlying assets. And so for large holders, they may choose to do that, or they may choose to arbitrage it. And
Right.
I would imagine there will be people arbitraging it where they buy it on the open market, redeem it, and sell the underlying or do whatever. So anyway, it's a utility protocol now. It is a partnership between some of the largest LRTs, and in fact now even a couple of others are joining the consortium that's managing LRT². And the governance token is going to be used to make these decisions around, as I said, whitelisting and parameters. And I think it's actually a pretty important protocol. I mean, it's going to be managing, hundreds of millions of dollars a year of rewards that are flowing from various restaking solutions. So it's actually a pretty key piece of infrastructure. So I do think there's going to be value in the thing. Okay, hopefully that makes sense.
I think absolutely it does. So my very, very base understanding is it is a token that will be used to distribute the AVS rewards to users. It is effectively backed by whitelisted AVS emissions or tokens. This value aligns LRT projects with AVSs by not insta-dumping their governance tokens or whatever they emit. And then it allows people to choose or have the optionality of either holding LRT², maybe getting some LRT governance value on top of that, redeeming it for the underlying AVS items if they want to do that, and then potential arbitrage opportunities if ever the sell pressure on LRT² exceeds the value of the backing of LRT².
Correct.
Okay,
yeah,
now that is a brainful, I would say. But once you get the concept, I think it's relatively simple. Now,
well, for a user, it'll be super simple. You won't need to know any of this. You're just going to go to the EtherFi front end. It'll say you've accumulated, 3 LRT².
Right.
Okay, claim, done. That's it.
And so
that's all you need to do.
Instead of having 10 different assets that are aggregated and getting you a net APR of +2, +3, +4%, you're just gonna get 4% APR in LRT² that you can then choose to redeem if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, we had a bunch of questions about this.
You don't need to, you can also sell it. There's already liquidity on the market, as of right now. There is liquidity for LRT². So you could sell it. You could buy more if it's trading below market. You can do whatever. Yeah, it's already easy. Just click the button and you're done.
Where does the liquidity for that exist? Is it a Uniswap pool? Is it a Curve pool? Maverick?
It's Uniswap.
Uniswap's permissionless, so anyone could just throw a pool up there, which is nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now there are no AVS emissions, as far as I know. So is it fully backed by Eigen?
Eigen and EtherFi, because we, through our benevolence, chose to seed it. So yeah, it's backed by EtherFi and Eigen.
One of the questions that I had about LRT² was that I understand its relationship to eEigen and its relationship to wrapped EtherFi ETH. I don't yet fully understand its relationship to eBTC. So you guys have a suite of products. You also have is it EUSD? Is that the correct term there? Yeah, EUSD,
yeah.
eBTC. What is the relationship between those two assets and the future of LRT²?
So those assets are also going to be earning restaking rewards. eBTC is already I think it's in Symbiotic, and I think it's in Corrupt. I'm not sure. So it is being restaked, and of course some of it will be restaked in Eigenlayer once they turn on restaking for BTC. So it's going to earn LRT squared just like ETH. It's going to be the same thing, and then USD is in Eigenlayer. So yeah, that's also earning Eigenlayer points and not points, I should say, Eigenlayer rewards now.
So this is another interesting point. We have Symbiotic, we have Babylon, we have Eigenlayer, we have a number of different restaking protocols.
Yeah.
Will LRT squared be Eigenlayer specific, or will it be? No. Okay. Tell me about this.
So this is the nice thing about LRT squared is that as this restaking ecosystem, continues to grow, continues to become more and more complex and messy, it becomes just an industry standard. Just it's a platform that allows anybody, any protocol that becomes large in this category can then come in and apply to have the right to mint LRT squared. And so our hope is that this just becomes an industry standard. This is why we didn't, we as EtherFi, we have the scale to just like make it a thing, right?
Right.
Even if we use it, and that's fine. In fact, in some ways, you could make the argument that it's in our interest to only have us use it because it's a better system, and I think it'll lead to us having advantages. But the reason we created LRT squared is and made it more of an industry standard that's open to others to use, because I actually think it's better for the ecosystem if everyone just standardizes on this. So EtherFi, even though we've done almost all the work associated with getting this LRT squared thing out there, we don't have any kind of preferential position. We're getting the same vote as anybody else, because it really does, I think, need to be an industry standard.
And can you
go ahead, Mara,
break down for us kind of like the timeline here? So I know where folks are kind of expectant and waiting for the programmatic rewards that have been kind of flowing since August 15th until October 15th. LRT squared is now live. I can actually go see it on Uniswap. It's pretty exciting to see that there's now liquidity and trading going on. What's the next steps,
is there trading going on?
It looks like there's some, I don't know if people are buying and selling it and stuff, but looks like there's some volume. What's the next step in terms of like people claiming it, people see, being able to see the underlying backing, considering if they want to ARB or if they want to sell, or kind of all the different, steps related to, people like understanding and being able to use LRT squared?
Yeah, look, again, it's designed to be totally transparent for you as a user. So as a user, you don't need to think or know anything about LRT squared. You literally can just go to it. Like for now, I think it's just EtherFi that's implemented it. But you go to EtherFi, you click claim, and then you either hold it, and then again, it's basically an index of all the LRT related tokens. You can either hold it or sell it right on the EtherFi page. So it's literally claim and sell, and that's it. You don't need to know or understand anything else. All of the complexity of like what tokens are backing it, where is it trading on, like all that stuff is abstracted away from you as a user. You just see an APR and you can hold on to it, as I said, just as a nice index of restaking if you're bullish or not. That's it.
Got it.
There's been like a 10% ROI, by the way, on that 1% pool in the one day. So people who were like the fees generated are $30,000. The TVL currently is around $300,000. That's a 10% ROI for anyone who's been LPing it. That's nuts.
It's small. I think it's a small pool. So it'll probably. Well, I think it'll actually always be a good pool to be in. Okay, not financial advice, because by definition, there's going to be tons of trading. There's going to be tons of people arbing it, and there's again, it's going to be processing hundreds of millions of dollars of rewards. So tons of people are going to be claiming it. Some are going to sell it, and then other people arb it back to its natural price. And so it'll just, and then obviously we'll we're going to have integrations into all the major DeFi protocols. We'll aim to have a Pendo pool, aim to have all the stuff that lending protocol integrations, maybe even perps. So we'll have integrations into LRT², and so I think it'll be like a pretty nice asset. It's almost like absorbs all the trading activity from many coins into a single coin, and so I think that also means that there'll be a lot of liquidity in that pool because the ROI I think will probably be pretty decent.
One of the questions that I had was, will any of the underlying assets be rehypothecated? So will ever
No. Intentionally, if people want to do that, which I'm sure they will, well, it's not rehypothecation. If you want to DeFi degen your LRT², great, go do that, but you do that with LRT². None of the underlying assets are going to be sort of messed around with. The only exception is the ETH that's in it will likely be staked.
Right.
And I don't know if the decision has been made if we'll stake the eigen, but like there may be staking, like the assets might be staked. But other than that, it's it'll just it'll be what it is.
Now, what about the governance token? What value is that going to have? And will it be like stakeable? Will it have an APR, or what utility will it have?
So don't know for sure yet, but probably I should say, and this is a decision that we made at a governance level, but probably it will have some take rate. So for example, like I think a number like 1% or 2% or whatever. Every time you mint LRT², maybe 1% goes to the treasury, and that turns into a staking yield for the governance token, something like that. It's like pretty simple, nothing too fancy. But there will be some sort of value accrual mechanism to the governance token.
And the minters, those are like specifically whitelisted protocols. No, like I
Correct.
couldn't take a bunch of AVS tokens and say, I want to go mint some LRT².
Yeah. It introduces a ton of risk and attack vectors.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a whitelisted set of minters.
Is it starting today with no fees? Like, is there no fees for people
Correct.
that are collecting?
There's no fees right now. So this will be, I don't know, maybe a few months down the road, maybe a few years down the road, there will be a governance process to decide like what the value accrual mechanism should be.
Got it. Very interesting.
Now, one thing I noticed is that it has a really high price. Like it's unusual for an emissions token. Right now, it's LRT² is $2,913, which is surprising. Yeah. Was there any psychological decision into doing that?
I think just the devs kind of said it that way. I don't know that there was actually a thought process. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if there's a if there's maybe we'll do like a 1,000-to-1 split. But for now, we'll just let it float.
I will say, like, what it does make me more inclined to LP with ETH, because I'm like, oh, it's right around the same price as ETH. Why wouldn't I LP this with ETH? Whereas if it was, if you minted 10 times the amount, you still have the same effective APR and nothing else would change except you would just feel like, a more fractionalized token. It's interesting. Okay, so
Mike, can you
go ahead.
Can you tell us a bit about LRT² points? I think folks have started to kind of see these things popping up on different products.
Yeah, we originally weren't going to have separate LRT² points, but we've recently actually made the decision that it's just the most sensible way. I mean, as much as like people can complain, and I can complain about points, obviously it's just kind of overdone at this point. But yeah, we're just gonna we are going to have a point system that gives you exposure to potential outcomes, I guess, with LRT².
Got it. And any alpha on distribution of the token, when that might be happening, if there will be an airdrop, who might be receiving that? Is there anything you can tell us about that, or is it all kind of TBD?
It's all TBD. I think that's like it'll be. I'm trying to think what I can say. I like if you look at EtherFi's track record, I think people are generally comfortable that we usually do the right thing. So some that translates into LRT squared.
Okay. Well, I like that. Now, I wanted to circle back to eBTC. Oh, actually, there's a few things I want to circle back to. So you guys actually have 3 different ETH restaking derivatives. We ETH.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
We ETH K.
Yeah.
And
So
then
that was really just like a consequence of like how early the restaking space was, that we didn't want to like mix them.
Right.
Fairly soon, I mean, a matter of like months, I think we're going to start mashing them together. There's just going to be one ETH. So we'll start consolidating.
So
them
similar
into
to how
just
LRT
ETHs.
Squared represents the AVS rewards from restaking across DeFi, there may be a new ETH restake derivative from EtherFi that just represents restaked ETH across DeFi.
It's just going to be ETH. Like, it's not even going to be a new. It's just ETH. ETH will start ingesting, load balancing across the various restaking platforms as we think is appropriate, as there's capacity. Because in the end, this only makes sense insofar as there is capacity to absorb ETH security and delegation by restaking networks, by AVSs. So, if Eigenlayer is all full, then obviously we're going to look at Symbiotic, at Grok, Nectar, whatever. But yeah, it is kind of messy to have like 3 different assets. I think that was still the right decision time. But for example, eBTC is it's a single asset, and it does.
Right. It's in Lombard, it's in
across.
Symbiotic, it might be in Grok.
Yeah,
shortly.
Right.
And actually, I had a question about this. So currently, we just saw the Babylon caps lift like dramatically. It went from 1,000, I think,
to like 25,000.
To 25,000. Yeah, some absurd number. And so, like, I understand why a lot of the underlying BTC was then pushed into Babylon. But now that is hit, should we assume that new wrapped Bitcoin or Bitcoin derivatives being restaked will then be directed elsewhere, or will it wait until the Babylon cap is increased?
Well, I don't know that there's anywhere to put it right now, anywhere other than the BTC generally is used to mint LBTC, which is in Babylon, but then the LBTC can be restaked in Symbiotic and eventually into other places. So the restaking part will be across a bunch of different services, but hopefully all of it is going to be in Babylon. You can think of Babylon as the staking piece, and then Eigenlayer, Symbiotic, Grok, etc. are the restaking piece.
As you guys start kind of condensing these products, so like King Grok and the Symbiotic EtherFi ETH, kind of integrating with the original ETH, similar to like distribution of like eBTC or EUSD, there's going to be a lot of different options that these assets can choose in terms of where they're being deposited. Is that something that is going to go into EtherFi governance, and it's going to be something that, is a decision that's being made there? Like the ratios of these things, is it going to be made by a strategist or kind of more internal to the team? Like how are those going to be discussed, thought about, and decided?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Eventually, yes, there will be a governance process. What we want to avoid doing is becoming, one of these protocols where like every decision, like every you want to commit a line of code, you need to do a governance vote, because it just becomes really paralyzing and I think limiting for the protocol. So so the plan is to involve governance, but we're going to try to make it so that the operator, which is a concept we have in our governance, the operator has a fair amount of latitude as far as like making decisions and day-to-day operations.
I will say one of the most interesting things about DeFi is that it is a like micro representation of everything else in the world, whether it be like finance or actual governments, because when you have a lot of governance, things tend to be slower. And you think, oh my gosh, this is just like reality, where the more things you sort of outsource to the government, the more just regulatory processes have to be affirmed or validated or like voted on prior to a decision being made. And I don't know, it continuously tickles me whenever I see the parallels between DeFi and how DeFi is kind of a reflection of and then innovation of the real life sort of mechanisms. Completely unrelated to what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and it's I think that's right. A lot of the pathologies that you see in governments and organizations tend to manifest themselves in crypto projects in pretty much the same way.
Yeah, it's like
one thing we didn't double click on, but you mentioned was, when I had originally been conceptualizing LRT², it was kind of like this reward token that I might want to claim and then either think about like selling or think about if there was an arbitrage opportunity doing that. But you kind of presented it more as this index, which I think is super interesting, right? It is a way for people to get exposure to restaking as a whole, right? So people are getting exposure right now to Eigenlayer, in the future to AVSs, because there might also be Karak tokens in there. There might be Babylon tokens in there in the future. There might be symbiotic tokens. So it really, over time will mature and have this kind of like broad, index-like quality. And that's why it makes so much sense for you guys to build out the DeFi, like Lego blocks. What does that process look like? I heard you mention, Uniswap. I heard you mention Pendle. What can people kind of like look forward to? I believe claims will go live relatively soon. And so, for folks that are deciding if they want to just...
They're already live they're probably already live by the time people are watching this.
So maybe people have claimed their LRT². They're thinking about maybe what they want to do with it. What are the options? What can people kind of consider? Is it just basically today, they can consider if they want to sell it or not, but in the future they can do these other things? What does that roadmap look like?
So the short answer is that right now what's available to you is to either hold it, sell it, or redeem it for the underlying assets. That's it in this second.
Well, hold up. You can also LP it for 3,600% right now, I will say.
Okay, fair enough. There we go. That's your first. There we go. That's your first DeFi opportunity. Is you can LP it. I think, and as we talked about earlier, I think there will always be like pretty good volume on it until the liquidity in that pool really like ramps up to like tens of millions. So I think the APR is actually going to be pretty good. Okay, so those are your options. The plan is to be able to do all the usual things that you expect in DeFi. So there will be lending markets that are going to support it. It's a pretty nice asset with a well-defined price. There will be as I said, probably a Pendle pool if we can work that out. There will be all the usual things that you can do in DeFi with this token. You have that to look forward to.
How would one go about understanding the backing? So you mentioned that arbitrage should happen at some point in time because a savvy investor could look at...
it must already be happening because there's no other purpose to trading right now than the arbitrage. Yeah.
And when would redemption go live? Sorry, you may have already answered this. For the underlying
redemptions
assets.
are already live.
Oh, okay.
The only thing I'm not sure... By the time people are watching this, for sure, it's already live. Right this second, I'm not sure if the front end has gone up, but at the smart contract level, redemptions are already live.
Can you explain to me the purpose of restaking and where you see it going in the either near or distant future?
Purpose of restaking, man, that's it's like asking the meaning of life. I think there's lots of reasons that restaking is beneficial. I think it allows people to bootstrap and take the advantage of shared security when they're launching new projects, which ultimately just makes it easier to launch crypto economic networks. That's basically it. So the question is, okay, are there going to be lots and lots of crypto economic networks that are going to generate value, and does this make it easier to launch them? And if the answer is yes, then restaking will have some value. That's like conceptually why and those crypto-economic networks could be blockchains, could be, off-chain compute. It could be Oracle networks, could be any number of things.
Awesome. Now, one of the phrases we get heard thrown around a lot is economic security. People are like, well, you need economic security for this, economic security for that. And I don't know if there's like a great parallel for this in TradFi for maybe some of the people who are like trying to understand this, but what is the basic idea behind economic security?
So, let's look at it, Ethereum, right? A core mechanism by which the Ethereum network works is that you put some ETH, the native, token of Ethereum, you put some Ether at stake in order to get the right to run a part of the network. That's the idea. And if you do something that's judged to be malicious by the network, then you get slashed, then that ETH gets taken away from you. So ETH serves as that economic security for the Ethereum network. Now, ETH obviously is a mature product, and it took a long time to get there. But if you're launching a new crypto economic network and you're trying to create some sort of mechanism whereby a token is used as security to ensure that the network operates, to create economic incentives such that people do the right thing or the thing that you want them to do, that takes work. And usually what it means is you have to give up a lot of your token. You have to have very high emissions so that people are sort of like betting on the upside of your network. And that tends to be expensive. You have to spend a lot of your token on the bootstrapping phase. With restaking, it just lets you use less of your token to bootstrap. I mean, there's other applications, honestly. I mean, I can get into other more nuanced use cases, but that's the basic idea. Is the economic security is just a way of aligning incentives to operate the network.
And we've seen so many of these AVSs sort of come out with different ideas of what kind of, I guess, projects, protocols, features, functions, toolings will maybe fit the restaking narrative. One of them is eOracle, which is kind of interesting. Like, you have an Oracle that may benefit from economic security. Do you think there's any specific niche that will benefit the most from this narrative?
I think it's so hard to. I mean, there's a few that will benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the coprocessor category of AVSs is pretty interesting. There's lots of stuff that people are doing. There's a bunch of people building pre-confirmation AVSs that I think is very interesting. There's people doing cross-chain and multi-block MEV, which is interesting. There's, obviously people like doing, I think a bunch of people are doing Cosmos chain secured by Ethereum. There's a bunch of these. There's internally, like, we're creating a bunch of AVSs using the EtherFi token to decentralize a few of our more administrative tasks, like rebasing the token, things like that. Lots of people are actually doing that. So, there's there's a very broad design space, and I think it'll be interesting to see what really takes off. Feels like the pre-confirmation stuff is definitely viable and has like a nice solid revenue model.
Can you explain pre-confirmation to me like I'm a toddler?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I threw a whole bunch of concepts out there that, unless you're like super deep into crypto. I mean, the basic idea is you're selling future block space. That's kind of like, can you create a model where, like, I want to make sure I want to have some sort of guarantee that my transaction will be included. So it's like pre-confirmed instead of waiting. Let's say gas prices are high now or whatever, or you don't want to wait, a certain number of blocks. You just want to get it right now. But 0.1 seconds guaranteed your transaction is going to be included in the next whatever blocks. So that's basically what pre-confirmations try to accomplish. So it'll hopefully improve UX, because you could just like click a button and instantly you're like, yeah, all right, you're in. It will, and it'll create a whole market for gas futures, which right now doesn't really exist. right?
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Like right now, it's like, if you're a corn farmer, like, you're hedging your risk exposure, right? You're like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what price of corn is going to be in 6 months. I'm gonna sell some futures to make sure
you can
that I'm
effectively
locked
sell
in.
your yield ahead of time if the price is high enough, and hedge your.
That's right. This is where like all the crypto analogies come from, is from farmers.
It's from corn.
So you can't really do that right now. It's like, okay, I'm gonna need this much block space in the future. But like I have no idea what I'm gonna pay. I could be paying 1 ETH or I could be paying 100 ETH. Literally. Like the price could be 1 GUI or it could be 100 GUI. And that sucks. That's a problem for lots of protocols. It's a problem for lots of L2s, right? Because if they're using Ethereum as as DA. So that's a problem. So you need gas futures. You need to be able to hedge your exposure. So yeah, like pre-confirmation to let you create that market. There's a team, I forget their name already, but there's a team that's that's building that.
One question I had was, the way you're talking about this, it sounds like there's just such a kind of robust community of AVSs building and like having all these different kind of multitude of different use cases and products that they're coming out with. When do you think we'll start seeing some of these? I mean, I know, it's you're kind of dependent on other teams, so you might not have like a specific date, but like, do you think we're on the cusp now that we've moved into a world of eigen programmatic rewards? It seems like there's been a lot of progress on that side, that the next step is AVS is launching, or are we still a little ways away from that, do you think?
I think it's going to be years. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's not going to be like, months, suddenly there's a million AVSs. Like there's going to be people that come to market early. I think a bunch of them are very, very close to, turning on rewards and being on mainnet. But there's going to be a lot of like chaos and nonsense and whatever. It's going to be years before the market starts to resemble anything mature. But I do think that it's a huge design space. So I think people will build really interesting stuff.
That seems like a benefit. I mean, it not a benefit in terms of infrastructure, but a benefit in terms of people who benefit from the inefficiencies of this space. And I think most farmers do. The more inefficiencies, the more sort of differences between what should be the case and what currently is the case, it tends to present opportunities. So that's kind of exciting. But of course, if you're in it for the tech, maybe you're like, oh, because you have to wait a few years for the tech to really evolve. I had questions about BTC. So we start off with restaked ETH in eigen, and now you have liquid representations of the restaked ETH, and now you have liquid representations of restaked ETH in eigen and symbiotic and Karak. But now we're seeing this I don't know if it's not really a renaissance, because it's like starting for the very first time. We're seeing this appearance of what some people are calling BTC-Fi in EVM land. What was the decision? Why did you guys decide to introduce a BTC restaked derivative, and what do you think its future is?
So I mean, taking a step back, what we're trying to build at EtherFi is, an alternative to using banks. That's kind of like the way that we're thinking about it. So we're trying to build all the products that you might need from a traditional bank, so that you can get off of banks, so that you can, have self-custody and not have to sort of miss any opportunities as a result of that. And so the question that we ask ourselves is, first of all, what assets do users want to hold? And then what do they want to do with those assets? And the assets that people want to hold, for the most part, are BTC, ETH, USD. There's a long tail of random stuff, but like basically that's it: BTC, ETH, USD. And what they want to do with them is they want to be able to save those assets. They want to be able to deploy them, into DeFi, into whatever, in order to earn additional rewards in exchange for additional risk. And then they want to be able to spend and borrow against those assets. That's kind of like the suite, like save, invest, spend. Like that's the that's the space. So that's the MVP that we're working towards. And so that's EtherFi Stake, EtherFi Liquid, and EtherFi Cash. That lets you save, invest, and spend your crypto. And the three assets, the three restaked assets, and the various liquid vaults that we have revolve around those three assets. So we've got ETH, which is staked and restaked. We've got BTC, staked and restaked, and USD that is now staked and restaked. So that's like the matrix of what we're trying to build. It does. I've honestly been kind of surprised at the amount of demand and excitement there has been around BTC. It's still hard to tell whether it's the same people that were already active in DeFi and they're just like taking their BTC into it, or if they're net new users that are actually going to come in and do stuff with Bitcoin.
We run the DeFi Dojo Discord. We have over like 10,000 members there. 1,000 of them are like premium members. And what I have seen is that people who liked Bitcoin but otherwise just wouldn't use it because there was nothing to do with it have now found a reason to start purchasing and using and playing with Bitcoin in ways that they never would have otherwise. Just because from I don't know if the word is like ADHD investor standpoint or like yield farmer standpoint, just holding Bitcoin isn't nearly as fun or exhilarating as like staking, restaking, LPing, rehypothecating, borrowing, and like speculating on all of these different points rewards. So I do think that there is certainly a new addressable market that has been addressed, and that is now being brought into the BTC space. Now, I wonder if it's going to translate to BTC maximalism, which tends to be off of DeFi and just back into cold storage, or if it's going to have the opposite effect and bring people from cold storage into DeFi ecosystems. We will see.
I mean, surprisingly, I have seen some people go from cold storage into Babylon and Lombard because they got comfortable with the custody setup, and that's the whole problem that it kind of solves is the custody problem. So the fact that that's happening suggests that people are getting some comfort with it. And again, that surprised me. I almost didn't expect that to happen because I do think, Bitcoin maxi, they're like, no, you're not taking my Bitcoin out of my cold dead hands. Like
out of my dead cold storage wallet. Or
exactly.
Something to that effect. Well, actually, I have a question now. So you mentioned something that I certainly philosophically align with, which is debanking oneself. And to that end, so you have these three major products, right? ETH derivatives, BTC derivatives, and USD derivatives. How does that translate to a debanked future?
I mean, it's instead of storing your Bitcoin in an ETF or in your Robinhood account or whatever, or any of the centralized exchanges where you're taking risk, and one stroke of a pen from some government official can just take all of your assets away from you. This lets you self-custody it in an easy way. So part of EtherFi Cash is a wallet, a self-custodial wallet, the intent is to offer all the stuff that you're comfortable and used to with your traditional financial institutions, and just plugging it into one integrated system.
And you guys have
so eventually you'll be able. Sorry.
Do you guys? I know Mara also has a question, but do you have an on ramp? I know you have the card, which sort of acts like an off ramp into the real world.
Yeah, we don't. We will have an on ramp for sure. I mean, it's just we need to find the right solution and then implement it, but we for sure will have an on ramp. And the card is real. There we go. Here, so there it is. By Cash Card.
We're certainly big enjoyers of Aave and try to pay pretty close attention to what's going on. One thing we've seen recently is all these new instances of Aave, right? So there's like the Lido instance of Aave. There's obviously a ton of different chains that have instances of Aave, but notably also EtherFi has an instance of Aave. It feels like that hasn't quite kicked off yet, but I am curious if.
Well, okay. So there is an EtherFi instance of Aave. The issue with it is there's no ETH on there. ETH is not enabled as an asset. It's just like Ether. It's wrapped ETH and stables. But that's not the use case. So the use case for the main Aave market, which is why there's $2.5 billion of wrapped ETH on there, is people want to leverage. They want to deposit wrapped ETH, borrow ETH, loop. That's the use case. That's what they're doing with Lido. And that's what the Lido market is. Exactly the same thing. They deposit ST, borrow ETH, loop. So that's why the EtherFi market hasn't taken off, because there's no ETH, vanilla ETH enabled there. Otherwise, it would be big. So we are talking to the various Aave teams to figure out what to do with that. But yeah, that market's clearly not doing anything. So we need to do something about it.
Well, one of the questions that I received many times yesterday, as recently as yesterday, was, okay, BTC-Fi via EtherFi is super interesting. When is it going to start coming to L2s? A lot of people almost only use Arbitrum nowadays, or various different L2s for, gas reasons. I think the gas reasoning made a lot more sense when gas was like $50 per transaction. ETH is becoming remarkably affordable, so I'm surprised people are still using that, but it is still an argument being made. Many people have asked me, when L2s? So is there a plan to sort of bring eBTC over there? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. Within like a month or two, yeah, for sure. There's no question. ETH, eBTC, USD for sure are going to go to L2s. No question.
Awesome. Outstanding. Well, we have picked your brain quite extensively. Thank you so much for humoring us.
Yeah,
is there anything else
great conversation
that you want to let us know before we head off?
Maybe just to reiterate the EtherFi mission, our goal is really just to make DeFi easy and accessible for people by creating this integrated offering that allows people to save, deploy, and spend their crypto. So, if users are interested in hearing more about that, come to Ether.fi, check it out, check out the various products, and enjoy.
Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Mike, for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.